To the Ether Drive Protocell version 1, which is basically going to be a living document a little bit. And this is just some pre-engineered stuff. It's pre-engineering phase, I should say, for the public domain water fuel cell. And we're just going to be posting information as we learn with the research, because that's the best way to go about it. You know, why hide anything when other people can be simultaneously working and collaborating? So the Ether Drive Protocell version 1 is a scalar phase water injector. It's designed to operate using field-induced dissociation and plasma expansion. It's not just this brute force electrolysis or HHO production. So this system integrates mechanical flow, and we use that flow for voltage, and we create a valence state catalytic conversion and broadband photonic triggering, essentially, multi-frequency oscillation from the spark gap. That's what that means. And that can transform water directly into mechanical and thermal energy simultaneously. It's within the combustion engine, which can act like both a thermoelectric generator as well as a motionless electromagnetic generator with the engine block. But a lot of people just don't consider those things. It operates using only the vehicle's native systems: the fuel pump driving the water, the ignition coil, the engine block itself, and the ambient electromagnetic fields, the magnetic field of the Earth specifically. So the fuel pump driving the water and the laminar flow creating nodes within the water fuel injector would create the high voltage. That way it's an organic field engineering, not just digital impulses, right? So we provide flow, dielectric compression via water, and that creates a water hammer effect, which generates the voltage. There's basically polarized water that stacks on itself, and at the injector head would be something like maybe cobalt wrapped in titanium dioxide, or it would maybe be like stainless steel 304 with a coating of copper oxide, something like that, right? And then you're going to have this spark gap, which is a photonic emitter, which triggers resonance and valence shift in the water. And note that the water, and if you have acid in there, pre-injected pH, maybe ionic water, charged water, you condition it a little bit beforehand. That hydrogen can serve as something in this cobalt, right? And the pH will help drive it. So will the light, right? The light will interact with this from the spark gap, and triggering at the speed of light is pretty good. The ground plane is essentially your engine block, which is a spin polarizer in a scalar node. You know, another example of a scalar node is like the triple point of a three-phase AC transformer. So the atmosphere is an impedance-controlled scalar cavity for energy release. Impedance is like, you know, a difference in density. That's all that means. So there's light reflection and light refraction through the material. That's all that is. So you can use distilled water or really any water, because in my slides number 2 I explain how it flushes the salts. The tubing you know, something like your fuel line tubing would be adequate. Maybe a check valve, maybe a drain valve, you know, you're going to need like a water container potentially, maybe a surface catalyst like titanium dioxide or copper cuprous oxide, like that would be 2.4 electron volts, which is green, whereas this, you know, that's a little different, but this is like strong. The titanium can take the scalar bleed, and it has mechanical strength, but in its rutile state, not so much. But if you had like a titanium shell with an oxidized layer, that would be really strong. And so the shock wave of that from the pressure swing of the engine could also maybe help drive it. So the spark plug it's just from the existing system, right? We're just using that as our trigger. And the engine ground tap, we're using the block itself, so just keep the engine. And then you could probably use the same fuel pump. Maybe you have to change it, I don't know, I haven't done it yet. But the water is pumped through tubing into dielectric pipe sections, just insulated pipe. There's a water hammer effect in the tubing, or really actually, more importantly, in the water fuel cell in itself when it hits that rutile. You want like a laminar stream, like maybe a foot or so, or half a foot would be probably plenty, flowing through that, hitting that rutile. It's forming these nodes, and then it's like this UV laser within it activating the N=2, the H plus interacting with the cobalt or the rutile or whatever, that activates and unlocks chemistry from the atmosphere that helps drive the water dissociation as it flows on the backside. You know, it's going to flow around this cylinder. There's going to be this eddy wake zone that's oscillating back and forth, like whipping it back and forth. And, you know, when it flows through a nozzle, at the tip of the nozzle there's a low pressure region, so it's like super cooling it. And then when it comes out of the nozzle, it's like superheating it and expanding it, you know what I mean? So as soon as it comes into the engine and it's like top dead center and the stroke is and the momentum is already going that way, the kinetic energy of that flywheel actually helps drive it as well. And so the water just gets ripped apart because of the Fe2+, Fe3+, altermagnetic slingshotting action of the electrons flying in there with the light and the spark gap triggering it, and that energy flowing through the water, forming these conductive chains, because the water is a magnet in a conductive chain. And next thing you know, they all want to fly apart, and it does work on the system. And the nitrogen is a part of the chemistry now instead of just this inert thing, but it helps slow the wavefront nonetheless. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. I don't want this video to get too long, but yeah, feel free to pause whenever and read this. So I don't think a 555 timer is needed or anything. You can try pulsing water with MOSFETs or whatever, but you shouldn't need more than like 5 watts to get it to rip apart. So yeah, water flows in, water hammer, high voltage, hits nonlinear oscillator. You apply voltage to that with the spark gap. The spark gap basically is a spin phase catalyst, multi-frequency oscillator driving it, and the ground block is switching flux. So you get plasma to do work for you. And protium of the hydrogen is plasma. Know that. So yeah. Check out this document if you want to. So, I don't have any money to make this sort of stuff happen, but if you guys do, or if you guys want to work on it yourself, or you want my input, you know, I'm here for it. Alright, thanks for listening. I'll post this in the comments below.